Middle-earth is home to people and places of incredible beauty. Elves in their otherworldly havens, hobbits in the peaceful countryside, men and dwarves in their magnificent palaces. But there is also plenty of evil festering in dark places, horrors that could make the strongest minds splinter into insanity. Let's take a look at some of these locations, delving into the 7 most horrifying places in Middle-earth. Although their foundations have long fallen to crumbled ruins at the bottom of the sea, decaying and drifting away over time, the first 2 locations on this list were once places of great danger and madness. They have been reduced to legend, distant memories in the collective mind of Middle-earth's people, but in their time, they were definitely to be feared. The first of these is Lameth. Lameth was part of Beleriand, a vast region in the northwest of Middle-earth during the First Age. It was here that the Dark Lord Morgoth, then known as Melkor, fled with the spider Ungoliant, who had allied herself with him. Melkor had just stolen the Silmarils, a coveted set of 3 gems crafted with the sacred light of the 2 trees of Valinor. To aid him in his theft, Melkor convinced the massive and terrifying Ungoliant to attack Valinor. As he took the Silmarils into his possession, Ungoliant ravenously consumed the power of the 2 trees, draining Valinor of its light, and even poisoned the trees, leaving the once magnificent pillars of the hallowed land of Valinor shriveled and blackened, dying from a relentless and fatal affliction. Melkor and Ungoliant fled the scene of their abominable acts, but the consumption of so much light caused Ungoliant to swell to such a vast size and hideous power that Melkor became afraid. Hunger still not satiated, she demanded the Silmarils as well, and when Melkor refused, she attacked him, trapping him in her thick webs and attempting to take the jewels by force. At that moment, Melkor let out a chilling cry of anguish that rang out across the land, the raw, monstrous scream reverberating endlessly and infusing the very air that surrounded them. It was so impossibly loud that the Balrogs in Melkor's service, residing in his fortress thousands of miles away, heard the call of their master and came rushing to his aid, freeing him from his bonds and forcing Ungoliant to flee. However, the echo of Melkor's scream remained in Lameth, and anyone who passed through those desolate lands would be haunted by that voice. Until Lameth's destruction in the War of Wrath at the end of the First Age, that lingering echo of terror continued to permeate the land, a reminder of just how fearsome and monstrous Ungoliant was. In fact, the place where Ungoliant fled to settle and breed evil is the next location on our list, a wilderness in the southeast of Beleriand, which came to be known as Nan Dunger, the Valley of Dreadful Death. A dark, unholy place, it soon became infested with the spawn of Ungoliant, who mated with other lesser spiders in that area. Her children spread darkness as she did, lurking in the mountains and blotting out all light with their foul webs. Nan Dunger was a place of such corruption and chaos that the very waters were polluted, poisoned by evil, and anyone who drank from them was driven mad with hopeless despair. No one, not even the greatest of elves and men, would enter that wasteland unless absolutely necessary. Nan Dunger was destroyed along with Lameth in the War of Wrath when Beleriand fell, but many of Ungoliant's offspring, such as Shelob, were able to escape, scattering among the dark places of Middle-earth. And as for Ungoliant, it was said that in her insatiable, ever-growing hunger, she eventually devoured herself. Thankfully, these regions now rest at the bottom of the sea, their evil power snuffed out by the watery deep. But Middle-earth has plenty of other frightful locations, some that come far too close to the most peaceful of regions. The third place on this list is nestled in a quiet countryside, where hobbits lead their simple lives and harmless travelers amble across the lush green fields. Behind the old forest, nestled among the hills east of the Shire, were the Barrow Downs. Once a settlement of men descended from the ancestors of the Edain, the Barrow Downs contained many ancient burial mounds of the lords and kings who once lived there. Their tombs rested in peace, completely undisturbed, and even when the region became part of Cardolan, a kingdom split off from the kingdom of Arnor, the burial grounds remained a respected place. However, when the kingdom of Angmar, founded by the Witch King, chief of Sauron's Nazgul, began to invade the various kingdoms of Arnor, Cardolan was ravaged. Angmar's forces were subdued temporarily by elves who had come to Arnor's aid, but Cardolan did not survive for long. Already severely weakened by the Witch King's attack, most of its population was completely wiped out by the Great Plague in the early Third Age. This allowed the Witch King free reign over the region, and he sent evil spirits from Angmar to inhabit the Barrow Downs, corrupting the area to prevent resettlement. Spirits of the dead kings began to haunt the Barrow Downs, and their spells made the area treacherous to travel through. An innocent passerby could accidentally become lost in the fog, so thick and suffocating that it obscured all sight and smothered all sound. With its hypnotic voice, glowing eyes, and icy skeletal grip, a Barrow Wight, as the spirits came to be called, could ensnare anyone with its spell, causing them to fall into a trance. Succumbing to the stillness of the air and the mesmerizing whispers, one might sit for a short rest and involuntarily fall into a deep, deep sleep, which was nearly impossible to rouse oneself from without the help of a rescuer who had not yet been affected. In fact, Frodo and the other three hobbits fell under this spell in the beginning of their journey and would have been trapped at the Barrow Downs forever if Tom Bombadil had not saved them. The next place takes us back to the First Age, at the height of Morgoth's power as he sought to dominate Arda and rule over Valar, elves, and men alike. Angband was a fortress of Morgoth, his primary stronghold for many years, with a powerful arsenal of weapons and creatures bound to his service. Although some of its towers were built above ground, most of it lay beneath the largest mountains in Middle-earth, the three volcanic mountains of Thangorodrim. Orcs and Balrogs dwelt within its tunnels, and tortured slaves were held in crowded quarters. Expansive mines extended deep into the earth, and the chimney of the massive blast furnaces and smithies reached all the way up through the mountains to the smoky peaks of Thangorodrim. Even dragons were bred and nurtured here. The first dragons in Middle-earth were created by Morgoth in the depths of his stronghold, shaped into powerful war beasts with impenetrable scales and fiery breath that could reduce whole cities to ashes with only a few puffs. While Angband was eventually destroyed at the conclusion of the War of Wrath, brought to crumbled ruins by the Valar, when it was active, it was a truly terrible, torturous place, a place which bred only blood, brutality, and foul creatures who would terrorize Middle-earth for millennia to come. In speaking about Morgoth's stronghold, it may seem that Sauron's strongholds in Mordor, such as the fortress Barad-dûr, deserve equal attention, or perhaps even the land of Mordor as a whole. But the next location on the list of terrifying places in Middle-earth is neither of these, but instead Minas Morgul, the Tower of Dark Sorcery, situated close to the border between Mordor and Gondor. What makes Minas Morgul more dangerous and terrifying than Mordor? Wouldn't the heart of those volcanic plains, where orcs were most concentrated and Sauron's eye was watching closely, be much more fearsome? Well, we should think of Minas Morgul as all the worst parts of Mordor condensed into a small area. A good percentage of Mordor was populated quite sparsely with orcs and other creatures, and its southern region was even fertile enough to support farming. By contrast, Minas Morgul, in addition to being inhabited by legions of orcs in the Nazgul themselves, was a deeply corrupted land, its natural environment polluted by the infection of evil. The air was thick with noxious fumes that could cause insanity to any man unfortunate enough to enter, and while even Mordor had drinkable water, all the waters in Minas Morgul were poisonous. The sheer depth of Minas Morgul's twisted, evil nature is especially evident in how the free peoples of Middle-earth went about clearing their world of wickedness after Sauron's defeat. In many places, tribes of orcs scattered into nothingness after the defeat of their master. Haunted places such as the Barrow Downs were cleared of their malicious spirits after the sorcery of the Witch King and Sauron had ended. Even Mordor was able to be resettled. Once its towers and strongholds had been destroyed, Aragorn gave a sizable portion of the land to the people Sauron had enslaved, allowing them to build new homes there. But Minas Morgul had so defiled the valley it was located, in that even after the tower was brought to the ground and the fields were set to flame, Aragorn still declared that no one was to go there, for it would take centuries for the corruption to seep out of the valley until it became habitable again. Even after the end of Sauron's reign as Dark Lord, when all effects of his presence were being successfully wiped away, Minas Morgul remained a place of horror, a testament to the power of the evil that pervaded it so deeply and thoroughly. Some of these dark places of Middle-earth, much like Minas Morgul, cannot be easily destroyed and may always be present in some form, lurking in the shadows. Utumno is a prime example. Before Angband, there was Utumno, Morgoth's first underground fortress, and it was even more enormous and frightful than Angband. Not only did it contain the same creatures as Angband, but within those pits was where Morgoth committed one of his most abominable acts, taking what was natural and beautiful and mangling it into a form of life, born of pain and evil. Through a combination of dark magic and horrible torture methods, Morgoth took many newly awakened elves and transformed them beyond recognition into the orcs who would wreak havoc on Middle-earth for millennia to come. Such sins against nature made Utumno one of the most horrifying places Middle-earth has ever seen. Just like Angband, Utumno also fell by the hands of the Valar. But although its inhabitants were killed and its dungeons and forges destroyed, the Valar neglected to destroy the underground tunnels of Morgoth's stronghold. And this brings us to our last location on the list, Moria. Utumno's caverns were endless, so deep and so vast that they spanned the entirety of Middle-earth. The mines of Moria undoubtedly connect to these caverns, as it is said that there were dark places within those mountains where no dwarf dared to build. All sorts of fearsome monsters dwelt in the darkness of Moria, like the Watcher in the water, and the Balrog that turned the members of Balin's expedition into a massacre, leaving their bodies to rot in their ancestral land, a great palace turned into a tomb. The nameless things were also confirmed to wander in that abyss, as proven by Gandalf's account of his battle with the Balrog. Although Utumno was long destroyed, Moria contained within its depths the remnants of Morgoth's reign, showing that despite the victories against evil in Middle-earth, some portion of it would always remain skulking in the void, deadly to anyone who might stumble upon it. Tell us in the comments, which location in Middle-earth do you think is most horrifying? Be sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell to delve deeper into the history of J.R.R. Tolkien's rich, terrifying, and beautiful world.